everyone. Could I ask you to remain standing whilst Reverend Julie Jones offers prayers for us?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we humble ourselves before you. Father, as we gather together for this meeting, may you guide us and lead us and inspire us. Fill us with your wisdom and your love. Help us to be mindful of all the resources you put under our care. We hold before you all the people of our work. As finances are considered, help us to be respectful of one another, to be mindful of issues around us, and help us to meet the needs of those for whom we serve. We ask this in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
Standing order for yeah. So is it a suspension to stand there?
Good. Aren't we always?
We've always been in the dark.
Sorry. Is that on?
I think it is.
Sorry.
Is it on?
You can still hear me. I don't need a microphone.
I can't tell.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. Are we ready? Agenda item 1. Do any members have any personal or prejudicial interest to declare at our meeting tonight? Nobody? Oh, that's Suckley. If you wish, that's good. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 2 is Mayor's announcements. I'm going to be very brief. I would just like to thank everyone who's either coming to the ball or has made donations. People have been very, very generous, and I'm sure we'll have a good night on Saturday night. So thank you all for either donations or for coming to be with us. Thank you. Chief Executive's communications.
No communications this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So agenda item 5 is questions from members of the council. There are no questions from members of the council this evening. And item 6 is questions from members of the public. There are 3 questions from members of the public that the Chief Executive will read out, and the portfolio holder will be invited to answer. So could you read the first one? Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Paul Baker of Wharton, assisted area status. I understand that Wharton and Westby and ward councillors, Ashton and Cunningham, have responded in support of assisted area status, despite overwhelming objection from both parish councils. Neither of the 2 mentioned councillors sit on either of the parish councils, nor are regular attendees at the parish council meetings, and I believe have not had the courtesy to inform their parish councils that they were going against their wishes. Can the ward councillors explain why they are not representing the overwhelming views of their parish councils? Please will they tell me what convinced them to act against their own parish councils in this undemocratic fashion?
Thank you. I believe Councillor Trevor Fylde will respond to the question.
Mr. Mayor, since the nature of the question is directed to the 2 ward councillors as described, departure from the normal procedure, I'm willing to come back, but the 2 councillors wish to make a statement because the question was directed.
That's fine, thank you. So, Councillor Cunningham.
better?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, colleagues. Councillor Ashton and I are 2 of the 3 elected borough councillors for Wharton and Westby. It is our role to represent the 4,000 people who live in the wards, not the few who sit on the local parish councils. Being granted assisted area status has the potential to help the communities that we represent, provide sustainable local jobs and ensure a future for the families and children that live in Wharton and Westby. Wharton residents may not be aware that we also represent Westby, and within the Westby ward is Whitehill Business Park and the future development at Windyke, where some 20 hectares have been allocated for commercial use. Whitehill Business Park cannot fill all the units that they have, so what hope is there for Windyke attracting new business without some kind of aid? The Assisted Area Scheme is designed to support economic and employment opportunities and has no link at all to housing or the creation of towns. Councillor Ashton and I fundamentally disagree with the decision that was taken by the parish councils regarding assisted area status. Some of the comments that we have heard about are a possible effect on house prices, car insurance, and the status of the area are quite frankly ludicrous, and in our opinion are obviously the views of a few misinformed individuals. We will always vote for and stand up for what we think is the best interest of the people that we represent. We will not be forced into supporting decisions that we believe are wrong. The assisted area status is an additional support from a regional administered European fund, which has been allocated to Lancashire. Businesses in an assisted area have the opportunity to access a greater share of funding and would also allow large organisations to access support and incentives. That is not possible outside the assisted area. There are potential additional economic benefits to local businesses that want to apply for the support, which is usually in the form of a grant. The scheme is designed to support economic and employment opportunities and, as I said before, has no link at all to housing or the creation of towns. The Federation of Small Businesses have advocated for and supported assisted area allocations across Lancashire, recognising the added value that they could have to businesses that make applications. There are areas in Lancashire and probably all over Europe that would jump at this opportunity. I don't believe that these parish councils have the right to deny small or new businesses this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
Mr Mayor and colleagues, I'm interested to know who Paul Baker is. If he's here tonight this evening. Sorry. I'm interested to know who Paul Baker is. If he's here this evening, I hope that Councillor Cunningham and I are able to reassure him that we've taken note of his question and that our reply will satisfy him and the Wharton residents who are concerned about our commitment to Wharton's future development. Although Councillor Cunningham and I have agreed to share the response to the question, I would like to support what she said about the assisted area. I am one of the few people in this hall who actually attended the meeting to find out about assisted areas. The meeting lasted about 2 hours, and in that time many concerns were expressed, mostly by the representatives from Wharton, who were worried that the village would be classed as deprived. The officer, Steve Smith, tried to reassure us all that this was EU money to be used to help businesses in the 2 ward. As Councillor Cunningham has said, we represent Westby as well as Wharton, and we are well aware that Whitehall's Business Park and future business development on Windyke need all the financial help available. It is for this reason Councillor Cunningham and I support this very welcome boost to local job prospects. We are surprised that Councillor Brickles did not support this opportunity for Wharton. We both make a great effort to attend the 2 parish council meetings each month, but there are times when we have other commitments. Sometimes I have a policy development meeting on the night of the Westby PC meeting, but Councillor Cunningham tries to attend and keeps me informed about matters concerning Westby. Westby PC always invite the 3 borough councillors to the meetings, sending out agendas and minutes, and therefore we are minuted as attendees. And I do have a list of all our attendance at those meetings. Wharton Parish Council, on the other hand, never send agendas to Councillor Cunningham and I. So although we are not actually invited, we make a great effort to attend all the meetings. I rarely miss a meeting, but over the last year it's not been easy for Councillor Cunningham to attend each time. Her sister, who lived in Scotland, was suffering from terminal cancer. She has since died. 6 months ago, Councillor Cunningham took on the task of minding her young granddaughter. She might have a late night on the Tuesday evening.
Could you stick to the question, please?
PC meeting. I can pass on any relevant information from this. I can pass on to her any irrelevant information from the missed meeting. However, the main point is, when we do attend meetings, we never feel welcome and are rarely acknowledged by some of the committee members. We are not encouraged to get involved with debates, even though we may have a better understanding because of our council training of issues.
Councillor Ashton, I think this is getting a bit personal and not really answering the
Quite
question.
personal, don't you?
Well, yeah.
I think the question that he asked us is quite personal, and I want to put the record straight. I've got a list here of all my attendance at Westby. I cannot for Wharton because we are never ever recognised as members there. So I'm just going to finish and then I'll sit down. We are concerned that Mr Baker has been able to question our attendance record, as I've never seen him at Westby PC, and as no record of our attendance is kept by the clerk at Wharton PC, it is impossible for him to check this. I know myself from my councillor diary over the past 3 years how many meetings that I have attended. As Wharton and Westby councillors, we do not have to inform the PCs of our action. We have not become members of either of the parish councils because we felt it would be better to have local residents on the committee so that there would be more people involved who could have their say. We feel we should have been given more involvement. We should have been given more involvement in the meeting. This does not happen in Wharton. We cannot express any support for or against Wharton issues. We are very active helping residents in both wards to sort out their everyday problems, but feel we've been pushed out onto the sidelines by Wharton Parish Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Councillor Fylde, did you want to come back or no?
I don't think I need to add to what's already been said, but simply to emphasise the simple fact that ward councillors are not delegates of the parish council.
Thank you. Question 2.
Trevor Clark of Wharton, assisted area status, Wharton and Westby Ward. Wharton and Westby Ward has been put forward as an assisted area for European funding on the basis that it is an economically disadvantaged area and included with some of the deprived areas of central Blackpool. I acknowledge that this might provide a welcome injection of money to enable local businesses to invest in plant and machinery and growth, something that is denied local businesses through the enterprise zone. Ward councillors were informed less than a week before responses were due. Fylde Borough Council agreed to support whatever decision the parish councils took. Both parish councils voted overwhelmingly to oppose this, and yet Fylde Borough Council supported the inclusion of Wharton and Westby in the assisted area. Can Fylde Borough Council please explain as to why they reneged on their commitment to support the vote from the parish councils? There is understandably a significant degree of nervousness about what this money will be used for in Wharton, and I am one of a number of residents seeking reassurance that this will not be used to support plans to turn Wharton into a town, which, as you know, is against the wishes of the majority of our residents.
Thank you. Councillor Fylde, would you like to respond to this question?
Yes, thank you. In answer, I emphasise the following points. Proposals for assisted area status come from the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills, and I emphasise not Fylde Council. Fylde Council is just a consultee in what is a national initiative. Thirdly, the objective of the assisted area status is to provide additional support to existing and new businesses. It is not, as has been said earlier, to create towns, a misconception. The Council will have no influence or responsibility for the support packages, and in most cases we will not even be aware that local businesses have accessed any support, because this will be administered through the Local Enterprise Partnership. The Council did not renege on the commitment to consider the responses from the elected members. The responses of elected members in the wards were both against and in support. Fylde Council chose to respect the view of all the parishes, all the parish and borough councillors, and made the following statement, and I quote that statement. The parish and ward councillors in Wharton with Westby have submitted mixed views on the proposals, and as such, it is appropriate that they submit these directly to BIS rather than being reproduced by another consultee. This statement does not support the inclusion of Wharton with Westby in the assisted area proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fidler. Question 3.
June Singleton of Wharton, BAE Enterprise Zone and assisted area status. At the last full council meeting, the Vice Chair of the Wharton Neighbourhood Plan Subcommittee asked for help from Fylde Borough Council to lobby Lancashire County Council and or the government for a change to the enterprise zone in line with the National Planning Framework, which promotes identification of local employment opportunities. The portfolio holder emphatically stated that Fylde Borough Council would not. Were Fylde Borough Council aware at that time that the ward was being considered for assisted area status?
Thank you. Councillor Fidler, would you like to respond again?
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council was notified about the consultation process in early January 2014, and this was indeed before the full Council meeting. This information from the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills was circulated. The proposals have no connection or impact on the allocated employment use on the enterprise zone, and consequently were not a factor in the decision not to lobby for a change to the enterprise zone itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we can move on now to item 7, which is the main business of the meeting, the medium-term financial strategy update, including general fund, capital programme and treasury management for 2013 to 14 to 2017-18. I'd like to invite Councillor David Ease to introduce the proposed council budget. Yeah. Sorry, can the Chief Exec just have one word?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Budget Council procedure rules that we adopted formally last year in the Constitution, that are the procedures that we've currently followed, actually state that the portfolio holder for finance and resources will then move a motion. Unfortunately, the portfolio holder for finance and resources is unable to do that this evening. She has laryngitis. So technically, it's an adjustment from the procedure rule that the leader of the council is going to propose the item and the deputy second the item. We can take a vote on that, or if everybody's happy to run with that, I just wanted to flag it up.
Thank you. Is everyone happy with that? Yeah, no problem.
Councillor Rigby.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Rigby.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Is that in order, Mr. Mayor?
And a throat sweet.
Thank you. A suitable supply of Hall's menthol lifters has been arranged. However, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Conservative budget freezes council tax for the 4th year running, whilst preserving the frontline services, and provides extra cash to improve St Anne's Pool external entrance, investment in much needed coastal protection, the refurbishment of Hope Street Park Pavilion, investments in the Borough Cemetery, improvements to Snowdon Road Depot to centralise operations and house Fylde Borough Council's vehicular fleet, in which there is also included a vehicle replacement policy, the update of the Council's IT systems and the continued support for Kirk and Baths. Budget demands for 2013-14 were reduced by a net £947,000, whilst a reduction of £550,000 is forecast for the 12 months starting in April. A significant proportion of the reductions is spent from the efficiency savings and expected increases in income. The freezing of council tax for 4 years, taking inflation into account, amounts to a cut in the council tax, whilst protecting and improving frontline services, resulting in a record level of public approval in the decisions that have been taken by this Conservative administration. We have got the finances of Fylde Borough Council right. We are also managing to increase the council reserves from 4.8 million to a forecast increase of 5.03 million next year to protect for any shocks that may come in the future. Our search for more value for money will continue, and Mr Mayor, I commend this budget to the Council, and I do have a seconder.
Thank you. Mr Mayor, I am that seconder. Thank you.
And if I may now have the opportunity to put a little bit more flesh on the bones with regards to the budget, and again say it's my pleasure to present it to the Council and to move the recommendations on the budget resolution, which is on the table in front of you. The figures which make up the resolution can only be calculated once all parishes notify the Borough Council of their precept. Hence, it's not possible to produce these ahead of the meeting. Members will be familiar with the format of the medium-term financial strategy, which outlines the general revenue fund forecast, capital programme, and also the Treasury management strategy. The matters contained within these reports are regularly before our scrutiny and audit committees, and so member input is wide and is welcomed. In particular, the budget proposals were set out in a report before Policy Development Scrutiny Committee last week, and there were no suggested amendments that were put forward. The budget proposals have been distributed to parish, town councils, partners, businesses, and included on the Fylde Borough Council's website for consultation. Our Finance Officer, Mr O'Donoghue, and his team continue to provide an excellent service in putting together the reports and being on hand to provide advice to leading and opposition groups, for which I am very grateful. Thanks must also be given to all the budget holders who continue to deliver savings for the people of Fylde in such difficult times. The main body of the medium financial forecast strategy begins on page 7 of your agenda and includes an explanation of the budget setting process, Fylde's key priorities and the reasons for having the MTFS. It is worth mentioning, as set out on pages 22 and 23, the main government funding streams to the Council are: 1. A reducing revenue support grant from 1.9 million for 2014-15 to 1.37 million for 2015-16, which is a 31% reduction. 2 business rates under the new localised scheme, which are budgeted at safety net levels, and 3 new homes bonus, which is fast becoming a significant income stream to the council. You will see on page 24 that the predicted forecast for the new homes bonus shows a sum of £1.7 million expected in 2017-18, which represents 18% of the council's funding. In terms of risks to the council, any changes to the NHB scheme will cause a significant impact. And as we know, there was a consultation over the summer to reduce the bonus by either 35 or 19%. Although thankfully this did not go ahead, it is a clear signal that funding streams are not guaranteed, and the prudent approach taken by this administration will continue. Another high risk set out in the report on page 27 is the possible loss of the waste recycling cost-sharing agreement with Lancashire County Council from 2018-19 forwards, meaning a potential loss of income of £750,000. Much work needs to be done to establish clarity around the arrangements and for proposals for the future, but members must be aware of this potential significant impact on revenue. The following pages detail a number of medium and low level risks which are clearly set out for members. The capital programme is funded by grants, capital receipts, earmarked reserves and borrowing. The Council's approach is to limit additional borrowing requirements and to seek a return on revenue for investments, such as boxes to bins. There are no high-level risks in the capital programme. The Treasury management policy and strategy needs to be adopted by full Council each year, which is set out in Appendices K and L, and is something that the Audit Committee regularly reviews. I want now to turn to the specific budget items and proposals that I mentioned earlier. First and foremost, Conservatives at Fylde propose a 4th council tax freeze. This is in a sharp contrast to the Labour Lib Dem administration at County Hall, who have passed a 2% increase, and also the Labour Police and Crime Commissioner, who has also announced a 2% increase. The burden on household bills continues. Thankfully, owing to the government's strategy to overcome the deficit, inflation is low, petrol prices are held down, and mortgage rates remain low. However, we also know that wages are not increasing, and therefore we at Fylde want to do all we can to lessen the burden to householders. Our mantra is not to take money from people unless we must do so. It is their money after all. We propose a freeze in the council tax and a freeze in special expenses. We have also passed on the unring-fenced grant from government to parish councils in order to compensate for the reduction in council tax base, which allows them to also freeze council tax. Parishioners should look very carefully at their local councils to see the result of that. Our other proposals are set out on pages 46 and 47 and include the continuing support for Kirk and Baths, the introduction of a pilot residence car parking scheme, an increase in budget provision for planning appeals, and investment in our IT. Proposals for our capital programme focus on investing for the future, and these are a replacement vehicle schedule to replace existing fleet at the end of their life, a contribution to the Hope Street Pavilion refurbishment, greatly welcomed by the Friends group involved at Hope Street Park. Further works at St Anne's Pool to improve the external entrance. Investment at Snowdon Road Depot to accommodate all operational vehicles on one site. Much needed improvement in our park cemetery to provide capacity for burials. Investment in coastal protection, which has levered in millions of DEFRA funding. And finally, the removal of budgeted expenditure for the local authority mortgage scheme from Section 106 monies, now that the government have introduced Help to Buy. Looking back over recent years, it is clearly demonstrated that this administration puts value for money and high-performing services at the forefront of its priorities. Recent resident satisfaction survey show a 90% satisfaction with Fylde Council and 97% satisfaction overall in Fylde as a place to live and visit. Our Finance Director comments on pages 23, paragraphs 23.11 on page 27 of the report for our finances at Fylde Council are robust. Not just for the present, but for the forthcoming financial year, but for the life of this forecast. And I remind colleagues that this is delivered by a very focused and prudent Conservative-led administration looking for the interests of Fylde residents, and again I commend this budget to the Council. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Councillor Fasackley, oh, you've seconded it, haven't you? Right. Okay. At this point, can I ask the Leader of the Opposition and any non-aligned members to indicate whether they'll be presenting an alternative budget or whether they will be moving any amendments? Councillor Rhodes.
Once again, I'd like to thank Mr O'Donoghue, Mr Swindles and the finance team for all their hard work in putting together a robust and balanced budget. Despite savage cuts and last-minute information from central government, they've managed by their prudent approach to continue to provide us with sound advice. I'd also like to thank all our staff for their continued cooperation through very difficult times for local government. We're living through very demoralising times for local government.
Councillor Rhodes, can I just stop you there?
Yeah?
Can you just indicate whether you are?
Yes, I did actually indicate that I was.
Yeah, I think that's all you need to do at this stage.
Are you taking the debate on?
Yeah,
right.
The rules are slightly different, so we take the debate on the motion that's on the table first. So you're indicating that you are putting an amendment. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to put an amendment this evening? No? Thank you. So in that case, can you indicate if you wish to speak on the motion that's on the table? No? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Rhodes. Please carry on.
I'll start the last paragraph again, if that's all right. I'd also like to thank all our staff for their continued cooperation through very difficult times for local government. We're living through very demoralising times for local government, and the cheerful and helpful manner our staff display is a credit to them and a credit to Fylde Council. Once again, we're implementing a zero rise in council tax, which is of course very helpful to many of our council tax payers. But it should be noted that the freeze has had the impact of cumulatively reducing our council tax by £429,000. And thanks to central government cuts and accepting freeze grants, this year we will have £245,000 less income in than if we had been putting council tax up by the permitted limit. Mindful of this, it must be accepted that budget council tax freezes in future years will become more challenging, and whilst reserves can be used in the short term to offset gaps, this is not sustainable, particularly as the scope to deliver savings will become increasingly limited. So council tax increases will have to be looked at. If there are further government funding cuts in future years, this will of course worsen our situation. Clearly, the process of reviewing costs will need to continue, and as future funding levels remain bleak, the savings opportunities from natural wastage will be limited, and reserves will not be able to plug funding gaps in the longer term. So this is a short-term solution, and we'll still be left with a recurring deficit in future years. This authority needs to plan to address these issues. What is the plan? Are you planning to reduce staff? Are you planning to reduce services? And what will be left in future? There is too much reliance on too few things in our budget, such as the new homes bonus, business rate retention, and possibly in future, fracking. Do we really want to be put in a position where we have to see more and more homes built on our precious green fields? Do we want our countryside to become industrialised? Do we want our beloved Fylde changed beyond recognition in order to balance the books? We asked last year, what is Plan B? And we're still waiting for an answer. So I ask again, what plans do you have when our reserves start to run out? We need to know what your future plans are. The public need to know, and our staff need to know. We can't continue to look at the short term and must start some long-term planning. We owe it to the people of this borough to spell out the consequences of continuing to accept the government's freeze grant and what the impact will have on our future services. I'd therefore like to move an amendment that a cross-party budget group be set up as soon as possible for the next financial year to look at all directorates to see what savings can be achieved. And I do have a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Councillor Duffy.
I'm happy to second that, and I'll reserve my right to speak later in the debate if there is one.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. I'll just read out that amendment so everybody's clear. The amendment is that a cross-party budget group is set up as soon as possible for the next financial year to look at all directorates to see what savings can be achieved.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak on that amendment? Councillor Hopwood. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to support Councillor Rhodes on a request for a cross-party group to look at the budget requirements for the next 12 months. I'd also like to thank Paul Donoghue and his team for returning to a 4-column format in the budget book this year. We are voting on the agenda item before you. However, the agenda item is only one half of the issue, the other half being the budget book itself. This year's budget book contains a number of new cost centre pages, and a greater understanding of general costings are required by all committees and councillors. Therefore, I hope Councillor Rhodes' request for a cross-party committee will be considered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Silverwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to support Councillor Odes on this recommendation for a couple of reasons. First of all, yes, I agree our 151 officers have and their team have done an excellent job. But the problem is, even though we have our Finance Committee and the opposition received this information in the very last minute, I felt quite awkward yesterday when I sent an email to our Mr O'Donoghue asking him a number of questions. This was because everything was done at the last minute. He diligently got back to me through Mr Walker with the information, but it is really difficult. So not only is it on the budget book, but it's also the content of the budget book, which is why I'm happy to support Councillor Odes on this. I'll give you an example. One of the questions I asked Mr O'Donoghue was under tourism section. And with the line of the 1940s Lytham weekend, in the year 14-15, it shows 0. The line underneath that, I think it's tourism and events and attractions, shows 30,000. So I asked a simple question of, was the £22,000 that has been allocated to this weekend for the last 3 years going to take place again, or was it going to be a recommendation tonight? Just a simple question on looking at the book. Mr Walker got back to me today with an answer of it seems that it's a presentational issue with regard to having a 0 against that line. To me, that doesn't make sense. And when you're looking at your accounts, you put appropriate figures with appropriate lines. So if it is the intention of the council to give the Lytham Wartime Weekend £22,000, surely it makes sense that that's on the line. This may seem trivial, the point I'm making, but we're looking at the big picture of input into our budget book and into, as Councillor Odes said, making savings in various departments. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Armitt.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, colleagues. We've had everybody praise the financial staff on the great job they've done here and then say we need to set up a group to investigate the work they're doing. We've had people here say we need to, Councillor Hotwood said we need to look at the next 12 months, whereas Councillor Eve has clearly stated this is a 5-year budget that balances and presents all the facts for 5 years. So I don't know what, if Councillor Ode wants to look into 6 to 10 years or what period they're looking at, because this budget clearly states it's a 5-year balanced budget. I've got a heck of a 10 days all over the country, and I was sent this over 10 days ago, not short term, not last minute, and I've had easily to look through it and easily to read it. So I don't know what the timings are about, I don't know what the investigation is about, and I don't know what the confusion's about. So I just really don't know what this change is about.
Budget book, not that document you're looking at. We did say budget book.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Clayton.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Throughout the reports we've read from the Cabinet agenda on the 17th of February, the overarching identification of key risks emerges time and time again. I don't need to repeat what those key risks are because they've already been detailed by Councillor Reeves. At the summation of his comments, he said it's a potential impact. And I believe that this amendment, where we've got an opportunity for cooperation between the two parties to try and overcome what we anticipate could be, as Councillor Reeves says, a potential impact. This is a great opportunity, rather than us being opposed to each other all the time. It's an opportunity for us to work together to be able to address and make sure that if the government do cut the new homes bonus, as we anticipate they will do, that we're working together to try to work out a situation that we will not find ourselves in financial difficulty in the future. So I'd be very happy to support the amendment that's before us at the moment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clayton. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Councillor Duffy to support.
Councillor Duffy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of what I would have said has been said already, particularly by Councillor Clayton there.
Yeah.
When I joined the council, I did so purely from a non-party political basis, and something as important as the budget. I'm totally convinced that it shouldn't really have anything to do with party politics. I think the fact that for the last 3 years that I remember, there has been no alternate budget put forward by the independents or anybody else it indicates the fact that, by and large, I personally think that the Conservative group who put together the budget are doing okay. There may be specific things that we would like to see slightly different or slightly different emphasis, but the budget is fine, and nobody's really complaining here about anything within the budget that should be different. I'm sure that the Conservatives are aware of the risks that are coming up. They were mentioned in the speech, and they're mentioned in the reports, and the Section 151 officer, and he's obviously aware of all that. So in a spirit of cooperation, I mean, we are going to be faced with some difficult times coming up, and there are some significant risks, and I would suggest that rather than looking at it from a party political point of view, I would urge the Conservatives to realise the fact that we all need to work together. We're going to need to dig deep, and we should be calling on all the resources that we've got. And some of those resources don't belong to the Conservative Party. I'm quite happy that the independents would be willing to take part and help. And personally, I don't care whether the Conservative group still want to take credit for any ideas that we come up with. That's my personal point of view. But I think that we should be open to working together and trying to do the best as a council for the people that we're representing. So I would commend Councillor Ode's amendment, and I will certainly be voting for it.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eaves, it's your right to speak at the end of this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm particularly proud of the 4 budgets that I've been able to contribute to and present to this council. And I am more than convinced that my finance team, along with our excellent finance officers, will manage whatever comes up towards this council in the future. I'm not in the business of taking money off Fylde residents just because we can do. I believe we are in difficult times and should be looking at those difficult times and responding accordingly. I'm aware of the compound interest problems with regards to zero council tax, but as I say, I'm confident that we, with my finance team and finance officers, have the ability to address those, and has been demonstrated by, in my opinion, the 4 excellent budgets that I've been able to put forward to this council. Finances have never been as robust. I again make the observation that I'm just not in the position of putting up council tax because there is an opportunity to do so. And with regards to the amendment, I will not be supporting that put forward by Councillor Odes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Right, I'm now going to put that amendment to the vote now, just let me clarify, does this need to be a recorded vote, or is it just the final one?
As we understand, it's the final vote on the budget that has to be recorded in accordance with the Secretary of State instructions. Obviously, where there is the facility within our constitution for members to require this to be a recorded vote.
Yes. Councillor Clayton, do you... Have we got people willing to support a recorded vote on this? Yes. Quite amount, thank you.
Read the amendment out.
Okay, so can you read the amendment, please?
Right, the amendment is that a cross-party budget group be set up as soon as possible for the next financial year to look at all directorates to see what savings can be achieved.
If members could indicate whether you're for, against or abstaining, please. Councillor Ackers?
Yes.
Councillor Aitken?
Yes.
Councillor Ackroyd?
Yes.
Councillor Andrews?
Yes.
Councillor Armitt?
Yes.
Councillor Ashton? Sorry, Susan Ashton. Councillor Tim Ashton? Councillor Keith Beckett? Councillor Brickles? Councillor Buckley? Councillor Chedd? Councillor Chew? Councillor Clayton? Councillor Collins? Councillor Craig Wilson? Councillor Cunningham? Councillor John Davis? Councillor Duffy? Councillor Eaves?
Yes.
Councillor Fazakerley? Councillor Fiddler? Councillor Ford? Councillor Gail Goodman? Councillor Goodrich? Councillor Hayhurst? Councillor Howard Henshaw? Councillor Jakes? Councillor Little? Councillor Barbara Nash? Councillor Edward Nash? Councillor Oates? Councillor Pounder? Councillor Presswich? Councillor Redcliffe? Councillor Rigby? Councillor Singleton? Councillor Threlfall? Councillor Wilder? Councillor Naughty the Mayor? For. Councillor Silverwood? For. I beg your pardon, how's the hot blood?
Sorry, Ken.
Feedback is horrible. Can we just say it? Say it with the mic to us now.
Mr Mayor, the amendment is lost. There were 15 for it, 25 against it and 1 abstaining.
Thank you. How sad that we don't want to work together. I now put the substantive motion. Sorry. Okay, I'll withdraw it. Thank you. So, yeah, I'll now put the substantive motion. Do we need to read anything out, or is it? It's quite long, isn't it?
It's now to vote on the substantive motion. The papers are in front of you, which titled Council Tax Resolution for the Council 3rd of the 3rd 14. And there's Cabinet Budget Recommendations 1 to J, and then 2, 3, 4. They're on several pages covering 6 sides. I don't choose to read them all out, But if you want me to, I can do.
Could everybody hear that? Because the sound is particularly poor on that mic, I think. Is everybody clear what we're voting on? Councillor Duffy, point of order.
Yeah, just a point of order, really. I mean, I know the paper is here in front of us, but what's here in front of me today, these 6 pages of numbers, whilst I can't actually see anything wrong with them, they aren't what appears on the internet, and they're not what was delivered to me. So the first time I've seen recommendation J, as far as I can tell, the rest of them are pretty much the same as is in the original agenda. But item J is new, and there's been no mention made of that. I mean, I realise everything's done very last minute because of the timescales, but it would have helped even if we had had this even a day or so in advance by email, or at least some mention when we're debating it, of the fact that the paper we have in front of us isn't the same as what people may have read when they first received the agenda a couple of weeks ago. And I'd like to say I'm not complaining about what the officers have done. I realise it's all very last minute, but just if we could have any additional information like this as soon as possible, it would be helpful.
I think, to be fair, Councillor Duffy, this happens every year because it is last minute.
Yeah, it is a challenge. I believe the deadline date is the 28th of February for the parishes to give the information on the precept. Some parishes give it in advance of that. 1 or 2 always have their meetings on the deadline date, or as close to that as possible. To accommodate that next year, we have moved the Budget Council to a Tuesday night. I do know that on Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, Paul Swindles was putting together these final figures, because with the 28th falling on a Friday, we didn't have the hindsight to change this meeting in advance to the Tuesday. With that deadline on the Friday, he did get, I believe it was Friday evening at something like 5:06, he got the last thing. But it's fully understandable. In today's age of technology, we can send it out a lot sooner. Thank you.
Councillor Hayes, is it a point of clarification?
Just a point of information, actually. One of the problems is that the County Council only met last Wednesday and set its budget, and there were certain things in the County Council budget which were absolutely vital to the parishes, and obviously parishes, therefore, really many of them couldn't make a decision till after the county. For instance, grass cutting by the county, which used to be done on an agency basis by the parishes, has now been abolished. That meant a big reduction in many budgets for the parishes.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Right, it is a recorded vote.
Okay. If members could indicate if they
It's that microphone. Can we? There's a lot of feedback on that.
If members could indicate if they are for, against or abstaining, please. Councillor Ackers. Councillor Aitken. Councillor Ackroyd. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Armitt. Councillor Susan Ashton. Councillor Timothy Ashton. Councillor Beckett. Councillor Brickles. Councillor Buckley. Councillor Chedd. Councillor Chew. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Collins. Councillor Craig Wilson. Councillor Cunningham. Councillor John Davis. Councillor Duffy. Councillor Eaves. Councillor Fazakerley. Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Ford. Councillor Goodman. Councillor Goodrich. Councillor Hayhurst. Councillor Howard Henshaw. Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Jakes. Councillor Little. Councillor Barbara Nash. Councillor Edward Nash. Councillor Oates. Councillor Pounder. Councillor Prestwich. Councillor Redcliffe. Councillor Louis Rigby. Councillor Singleton. Councillor Threlfall. And Councillor Wilder. And the Mayor, Councillor Nulty. 4. And Councillor Silverwood. 4. Mr Mayor, that motion was carried with 37 for, none against and 4 members abstaining.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good short meeting. Thank you. Thank you all for your attendance.